There was a time when Donald Trump was constantly doing television interviews. It really was a major part of his campaign. I mean, I'm talking 6, 7, 8, 9 interviews a week, maybe 4 or 5 Sunday shows in a single day. He would often take hostile questioning, but he drove the news coverage, and that was part of what enabled him to win the Republican nomination. Everybody often says, the armchair critics say, oh, you gave him too much airtime, because he came on the air. He accepted those invitations at a time when it was very difficult, and you had to kind of beg Ted Cruz or Marco Rubio or Jeb Bush to do interviews, and they would do a handful. I mean, he was turning it into Trump TV. But those days are now over. You haven't seen Trump do any TV interviews in a couple of weeks. And my sources say there's a reason for this. The reason is that they don't want to screw things up. That if Donald Trump were to suddenly go on a major television show, he's going to be asked about the latest stories in the press. What about the Trump Foundation? What about you taking on the press at rallies? What about your business record? What about this? Anything he says could make news and could distract from an environment in which most of the news, and not flattering news, has been about Hillary Clinton ever since we learned about the FBI opening that inquiry into the emails that ended up on Anthony Weiner's laptop. The Trump people kind of like that storyline because it's had Hillary Clinton on the defensive, and then the whole debate about James Comey and even this new inquiry. It's either an inquiry or investigation or something in between about the Clinton Foundation. Now, as for Hillary Clinton, this hasn't gotten remarked upon much. I mean, you remember that there was 9 months when she did not hold a news conference, basically didn't talk very much, at least on the record, to her traveling press corps. I mean, organizations spending hundreds of thousands of dollars to follow her around the country, and she just would not hold a news conference. Then came the beginning of September. She held a few, including some on her plane. The issue kind of went away. I thought it was a good thing that she was finally taking questions from the press. She still was pretty selective in the actual national television interviews that she was doing. Hillary Clinton has not conducted or granted a national television interview since September 12th. So for almost the last 2 weeks of the election, she has shielded herself, at least at the national level, from the kind of questioning that you get on national networks or national cable networks. And I don't think this is an accident either. She doesn't particularly like to do them. The heat was off because of the availabilities and occasional news conferences. But I just talked to Jennifer Griffin on Media Buzz, and she said that those have gone away too, that there was a long period of no talking to the press corps that travels with Hillary Clinton. Then there was a flurry of such availabilities, and now they're gone again. So especially, I mean, you knew that once the FBI story broke, although that she did hold a brief availability where Clinton took 3 questions, as I recall, from a traveling press corps, and that was it. And since then, no interviews at the national level, certainly not on television. Now, I understand this is a matter of strategy. What you do when you run a campaign is you're trying to stay on message. You're trying not to have some random answer or some moment where the correspondent or anchor comes at you hard, go viral, and it takes you off your game. And for Clinton, it's been mostly attacking Trump in the home stretch, although she does talk about what she would do as president. And Trump is closed pretty much on positive messages, although he brings up quite frequently, obviously, the FBI probe of Hillary Clinton and his view of her as corrupt. So it is in their interest not to talk to the press right now, but it still is disappointing somehow, because I think when you're president of the United States, you've got to deal with the press and the press coverage, and you've got to hold news conferences. We'll see, depending on who wins, how much of a feature that remains. You got one candidate who kind of has a love-hate relationship with the press, and then you have Hillary Clinton, who kind of has a hate relationship with the press, but does reasonably well when she is willing to take questions from journalists. But it's just amazing to me when it's all vanished now. It's all rallies, it's all sound bites, it's all paid advertising. And those television interviews that really formed a staple throughout this long, seemingly endless campaign are now history. And we're back here next week with more After the Buzz.